Life is not about waiting for the perfect moment. It is about creating the right mindset to make every moment perfect. Each of us holds untapped power, but most of the time we allow fear, doubt, or old habits to limit our potential. What if I told you that just a few simple yet profound shifts in your thinking could completely transform the way you live? Dr. Wayne Dyer once said, "One, you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change." These 8 tricks are not just strategies. They are life-altering principles. If you embrace them, they will change your life forever. Train your mind to focus on what you want, not on what you fear. This single shift in thinking has the power to open doors you never thought possible, to transform your reality from one of scarcity and anxiety into one of abundance and possibility. Most people live their lives allowing fear to be the loudest voice in their heads. They wake up already worried about what could go wrong. They take their first steps of the day bracing for failure, and they spend their nights replaying all the scenarios where they did not measure up. When you allow fear to be your compass, your direction is always backward, always away from growth, always towards safety that is not real. But when you shift your focus toward what you truly want, when you start programming your mind to seek the outcome you desire instead of obsessing over what you are trying to avoid, everything in your life begins to change in ways you cannot predict. The human brain is designed to notice threats, to anticipate problems, to keep you alive by preventing danger. It is a survival mechanism that has been hardwired for thousands of years. But the same mechanism that protected your ancestors from predators and famine is now the same mechanism that keeps you locked in cycles of stress, doubt, and hesitation. Fear tells you not to take that leap. Fear tells you not to raise your hand. Fear tells you not to apply for that position. Fear tells you not to speak your truth. Fear tells you to stay small. And because the mind listens to the dominant thoughts you feed it, when you keep feeding it fear, it begins to expect danger everywhere. You start to see rejection even before you ask. You start to imagine failure before you even begin. You start to limit your own potential before the world ever gets a chance to test it. But here is the miracle of focus. Whatever you feed your mind with becomes the lens through which you see the world. If you choose to feed it fear, you see obstacles everywhere. If you choose to feed it desire, hope, and vision, you begin to see opportunities everywhere. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a cliff with a rope bridge stretching across to the other side. If that person focuses on their fear, they will only see how the bridge might collapse, how the ropes might snap, how one wrong step might lead to a fall. Their body will freeze, their breath will shorten, their knees will weaken, and their chance of crossing safely will drop dramatically. But if that same person chooses to focus on the destination, on what awaits on the other side, their mind begins to align their body towards success. Their steps become more confident, their balance steadier, their vision clearer. The bridge did not change, the danger did not vanish, but their focus shifted, and so did their experience. Life is full of these rope bridges, situations where fear is screaming at you to stay still, but where your destiny requires you to move forward. When you train your mind to focus on what you want, you begin to activate parts of your brain that are designed to seek and create solutions. Psychologists call this the reticular activating system, a network in the brain that acts like a filter. Once you decide something is important, your brain begins to notice it everywhere. For example, when you buy a new car, suddenly you start seeing the same model on every street. It is not that the cars suddenly multiplied, it is that your brain decided this information mattered and began to bring it to your awareness. In the same way, when you consciously choose to focus on your goals, your brain begins to notice opportunities, resources, people, and ideas that can help you move toward them. If you fill your mind with fear, your reticular activating system will highlight threats. If you fill it with vision, it will highlight possibilities. This is not magic, this is neuroscience. Your mind becomes a magnet for what you consistently focus on. Think about the great innovators, leaders, and creators of history. Do you think Thomas Edison created the light bulb by focusing on the fear of failure after his 1,000 attempts? No, he trained his mind to focus on the vision of light. Do you think the Wright brothers became the pioneers of flight by focusing on the fear of crashing? No, they focused relentlessly on the dream of soaring in the sky. Do you think Nelson Mandela endured years of imprisonment by focusing on the fear of never being free? No, he focused on the vision of a liberated nation. Each of these examples shows the truth: greatness is not born from the absence of fear, but from the decision to focus on what you want despite the presence of fear. Fear will always be there, whispering doubts, painting vivid pictures of failure. But you must remember that fear is just a story your mind tells you. And just as easily as you can tell yourself the story of disaster, you can tell yourself the story of victory. Every time fear rises, it is an invitation to redirect your focus. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if I succeed?" Instead of saying, "I can't," ask, "How can I?" Instead of visualizing embarrassment, visualize triumph. These are not just positive affirmations. They are rewiring techniques that reprogram the subconscious mind to create alignment with your true desires. What you focus on grows. If you focus on the weeds of doubt, they will take over your mental garden. If you focus on the seeds of vision, they will bloom into reality. The power of focus is also tied deeply to energy. Have you noticed how exhausting it is to live in fear? Worry drains you. Stress drains you. Anxiety drains you. But when you focus on your goals, on your passion, on your dreams, you feel energy surge through you. That energy is not imaginary. It is your body releasing chemicals that fuel motivation. Fear releases cortisol, a hormone that makes you feel tense, weak, and defensive. Vision releases dopamine, a hormone that makes you feel excited, curious, and creative. By choosing focus, you literally change the chemistry of your body. You give yourself the physical strength to move forward. There's a story of a young athlete who was training for a marathon. Every time he thought about the distance, fear would take over. His mind would say, "You will collapse before you finish. You are not built for this. People will laugh at you." His body mirrored those thoughts, and he would tire quickly. Then a mentor taught him to focus differently. Instead of focusing on the fear of the 26 miles, he began to focus on crossing the finish line. Every morning he would visualize himself running strong, hearing the crowd, feeling the metal around his neck. Slowly his training improved. His body began to cooperate with his vision. And on the day of the marathon, he crossed that finish line exactly as he had imagined. His reality matched his focus. This is not luck. This is the principle of mental training. What you rehearse in your mind, you eventually live in your life. You can apply this principle in any area: career, relationships, health, personal growth. If you focus on what you fear in your career, you will avoid opportunities, play small, and stay stuck. But if you focus on what you want, a promotion, a new skill, a business launch, you will begin to see ways to grow and act with confidence. If you focus on fear in relationships, you will sabotage connection with suspicion, insecurity, and walls. But if you focus on what you want, trust, love, growth, you will show up with openness and attract the same. If you focus on fear in health, you will be paralyzed by worry. But if you focus on what you want, strength, vitality, healing, you will make choices that align with wellness. Every area of life bends to the power of your focus. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It tells you that you are being realistic, that you are protecting yourself, that you are preparing for the worst. But preparing for the worst is not the same as building the best. True realism is acknowledging fear, but refusing to let it dominate your decisions. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to focus on desire, even in the presence of fear. Every time you choose to focus on what you want, you build the muscle of courage. And just like physical muscles, the more you exercise focus, the stronger it becomes. At first, it may feel unnatural, because fear has been your habit for years. But with daily practice, choosing focus becomes second nature. You begin to catch yourself when fear arises and quickly redirect your thoughts. You begin to notice your language changing from doubt to belief, from worry to intention, from hesitation to action. Practical exercises can strengthen this mental shift. Every morning, before you dive into the noise of the day, spend a few minutes visualizing what you want. Close your eyes and imagine it as vividly as possible. See it, hear it, feel it. Train your brain to experience it as if it already exists. Throughout the day, when fear rises, pause and ask yourself, "What do I want instead?" Redirect the thought immediately. Write down your desires and read them often. Surround yourself with reminders, images, affirmations, mentors that pull your focus back toward your goals. Each small act is like a rep in the gym of the mind. The more you do it, the stronger you become. Even in the darkest times, when fear seems overwhelming, you still have the power of choice. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given situation. He endured unimaginable suffering, but chose to focus on meaning, on hope, on the possibility of a brighter future. If focus could sustain someone in a concentration camp, it can certainly sustain you in the challenges of daily life. The question is not whether fear will appear. The question is whether you will feed it or starve it. By shifting your focus, take responsibility. Stop blaming and start owning your life. One of the most liberating truths you will ever embrace is that your life is your creation. Every choice, every action, every reaction, every pattern has contributed to the reality you are experiencing today. Yet, so many people spend their entire lives handing away their power by blaming circumstances, blaming people, blaming fate, blaming luck. They tell themselves that the reason they are not successful is because of their parents, because of their boss, because of the economy, because of the government, because of what happened to them in the past. And while all of these may have influence, they are not the determining factors of your destiny. The moment you take full responsibility, you reclaim your power. Responsibility is not about fault, it is about ownership. It is not about pointing fingers, it is about pointing inward and saying, "This is my life, and I am the driver." The world is full of people who never rise because they wait for someone else to change their circumstances, when the truth is the only real change begins with self. When you live in blame, you live in victimhood, and victimhood is the heaviest chain you can carry. It convinces you that you are powerless, that your future is dictated by others, that your story is written in ink and cannot be rewritten. Victimhood gives temporary comfort because it removes responsibility. It says, "It's not your fault, you don't need to try, you don't need to change." But that comfort quickly becomes poison, because while it protects you from the discomfort of accountability, it also strips you of the joy of transformation. As long as you blame, you stay stuck. As long as you blame, you hand over the keys to your own life to someone else. Taking responsibility may feel heavy at first, but it is the first step toward freedom. Think about the way people speak when they are stuck in blame. They say things like, "I can't succeed because no one supports me," or "I'm unhappy because of what they did to me," or "I'll never make progress because the system is unfair." And while life is not always fair, while injustice and pain exist, the mindset of blame does nothing to change them. In fact, it only strengthens them by keeping you frozen in bitterness. But when you begin to say, "I am responsible for how I respond, I am responsible for what I do next, I am responsible for who I become," you create a shift that no external circumstance can control. This does not mean that everything that happened to you is your fault, but it does mean that how you carry it, how you grow from it, and how you transform it is within your power. Responsibility is a choice that separates those who rise from those who remain stagnant. History is filled with examples of people who refuse to let circumstances dictate their story. Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty and abuse, but she chose to take responsibility for her life instead of letting her past define her. She turned her pain into empathy, her struggles into strength, her story into inspiration for millions. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, yet instead of blaming and seeking revenge, he chose responsibility for healing a nation. He understood that blame would keep him chained even after release, but responsibility would set him free. Every great leader, every innovator, every person who has achieved greatness has done so because they took ownership. They stopped saying, "Someone should fix this," and started saying, "I will do what I can with what I have." When you take responsibility, you also transform your relationship with failure. Most people fear failure because they see it as final, as proof of weakness. So when something goes wrong, they blame others to protect themselves from shame. But those who own their life see failure as feedback, as a teacher, as an opportunity to grow. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that do not work." That is the mindset of responsibility. It is not about escaping mistakes, but about learning from them. When you own your failures, you also own the power to improve. Blame closes the door to learning. Responsibility opens it wide. Responsibility also brings clarity. When you accept that your decisions shape your destiny, you begin to pay closer attention to the choices you make each day. You realize that your habits are not accidents, but patterns you choose to repeat. You realize that your words are not harmless, but seeds you plant in the minds of others and yourself. You realize that your time is not infinite, but a resource you must steward wisely. Suddenly, excuses no longer feel satisfying because you see them for what they are, barriers you place in your own path. With responsibility, you stop waiting for motivation and start creating discipline. You stop waiting for luck and start preparing for opportunities. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you and start realizing that you are your own rescuer. Owning your life is also about emotional responsibility. How often do people say, You made me angry, you made me sad, you made me feel worthless. While others can influence your emotions, no one can control them without your permission. The moment you say, I am responsible for how I feel, you free yourself from emotional slavery. You may not choose what happens to you, but you always choose how you interpret it and how you respond. A harsh comment can either break you or strengthen you, depending on the meaning you give it. A setback can either discourage you or fuel you, depending on the perspective you adopt. Emotional maturity begins when you stop giving others the power to dictate your state of mind. Taking responsibility also demands honesty. You cannot own your life if you are constantly lying to yourself. You must be willing to admit when you are wrong, when you are afraid, when you have been lazy, when you have avoided the work required. Blame thrives in dishonesty because it keeps you blind to your own role. But when you choose truth, even when it hurts, you reclaim the ability to change. Growth is not about perfection, it is about awareness. The most successful people are not those who never fall, but those who admit quickly when they do and rise faster each time. Taking responsibility means saying, yes, I made this choice and I will make a better one now. It is a declaration of power, not weakness. The beauty of responsibility is that it creates empowerment in every area of life. In your career, when you stop blaming the company, the market, or the boss, you begin to look for ways to add value, to grow your skills, to create opportunities. In your relationships, when you stop blaming your partner, your friends, or your family, you begin to communicate better, to listen more deeply, to love more intentionally. In your health, when you stop blaming genetics, stress, or age, you begin to eat better, move more, and care for your body as the vessel of your dreams. Responsibility is the foundation of freedom because it puts the pen of your story back in your hand. One of the greatest shifts you can make is moving from a language of blame to a language of ownership. Instead of saying, I have to, say, I choose to. Instead of saying, they made me, say, I decided to. Instead of saying, I can't because, say, I will find a way. Language shapes thought, and thought shapes action. When your words reflect ownership, your mind begins to align with it, and your actions follow. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a privilege. It is the realization that you are the author of your life, and no one else can write your chapters for you. Unless you let them, the world will always give you excuses to avoid responsibility. There will always be someone else to blame, always a reason to wait, always an obstacle to point at. But the ones who rise above mediocrity are the ones who refuse to accept those excuses. They look at the same world others complain about and decide, I will not waste my energy blaming. I will invest my energy creating. They understand that responsibility does not mean control over everything, but it does mean control over themselves. And in the end, the only control that truly matters is the control you exercise over your own choices. Practice gratitude daily to attract abundance. Gratitude is more than a polite thank you, more than a fleeting moment of appreciation when something good happens. Gratitude is a mindset, a practice, a way of living that has the power to transform how you see the world and how the world responds to you. Most people believe that they need to wait for something big, something extraordinary, something life-changing before they can feel grateful. They wait for the dream job, the perfect relationship, the huge financial breakthrough, the recognition, the promotion, the success. But gratitude does not work that way. Gratitude is not about waiting for everything to be perfect. It is about recognizing the perfection that already exists in the smallest details of your life. It is about learning to see abundance even when circumstances feel scarce, about shifting your focus from what is missing to what is already present. When you begin to practice gratitude daily, you train your mind to look for what is right instead of obsessing over what is wrong. Human beings are naturally wired to notice problems. Our survival instinct makes us pay attention to threats, to dangers, to challenges. That is why negative news spreads faster than positive news, why complaints often feel easier than compliments, why disappointment lingers longer in memory than joy. But just because the brain is wired that way does not mean we cannot rewire it. Gratitude is the tool that rewires perception. The more you practice it, the more your mind begins to naturally see blessings instead of burdens, possibilities instead of problems, gifts instead of gaps. Gratitude changes not only your emotions but your biology. Studies show that gratitude lowers stress hormones, boosts the immune system, improves sleep, increases happiness, and even strengthens relationships. Gratitude literally reshapes the chemistry of your brain and body. Abundance is not just material wealth. Abundance is a state of mind. There are people who live in mansions yet feel empty, constantly chasing more, never satisfied. And there are people with very little who radiate joy because they are grateful for every breath, every sunrise, every smile. Abundance does not come from accumulation. It comes from appreciation. When you practice gratitude, you step into a vibration of abundance that begins to attract more of it. This is not mystical wishful thinking, but a psychological and energetic principle. When you focus on what you already have, your energy becomes expansive, open, inviting. People are drawn to you, opportunities are drawn to you, solutions are drawn to you. When you focus only on lack, your energy contracts, you close yourself off. And even when good things come, you cannot see them. Gratitude turns what you have into enough, and from that sense of enoughness, more flows naturally. Imagine waking up each day, and instead of immediately reaching for your phone, instead of immediately diving into the noise of problems, you take a moment to breathe and notice 3 simple things you are grateful for. It could be the comfort of your bed, the roof above your head, the ability to breathe, the warmth of the sun, the sound of a loved one's voice, the opportunity of a new day. Starting your day with gratitude sets the tone for everything that follows. It is like putting on a pair of glasses that tint the entire day with appreciation. Suddenly the things that used to irritate you, a traffic jam, a long line, a delay, become less heavy because gratitude has given you perspective. You realize how small these inconveniences are compared to the countless blessings you normally overlook. Gratitude also heals relationships. So many conflicts, so many disappointments, so many separations happen because people focus only on what is missing in others, what others did not do, what others failed to say, how others fell short. But when you practice gratitude for the people in your life, when you consciously appreciate their efforts, their qualities, their presence, the relationship transforms. A partner who feels valued will give more love. A friend who feels appreciated will show more loyalty. A team that feels recognized will work with more dedication. Gratitude is like oxygen for connection. Without it, relationships suffocate. With it, they thrive. The smallest words of genuine appreciation can repair years of neglect. Practicing gratitude does not mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It does not mean denying challenges or suppressing emotions. Gratitude is not about blind positivity, it is about perspective. It is about choosing to see light even in the darkest seasons, choosing to find lessons even in the hardest trials, choosing to recognize gifts even in the midst of loss. Life will bring difficulties, but gratitude helps you carry them with resilience. When you are grateful, you see obstacles as opportunities to grow, setbacks as setups for comebacks, failures as feedback guiding you closer to your purpose. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it gives it meaning. It turns wounds into wisdom and scars into symbols of survival. There is a powerful story of a man who lost his job and felt his world collapse. For weeks he was consumed by anger and fear, blaming the company, blaming the economy, blaming everything. But then he started a simple gratitude practice. Each morning he wrote down 5 things he was grateful for. At first, it felt forced. He could only write things like, "I am grateful I have food," or "I am grateful I can walk." But slowly his perspective began to shift. He started to notice the support of his family, the new skills he could learn, the freedom he had to explore different opportunities. Within months, he found a new career path that he had never considered before, one that aligned better with his passions. Looking back, he said losing his job was the best thing that ever happened to him because it forced him to see abundance in a new way. Gratitude turned a seeming disaster into a blessing in disguise. Daily gratitude practice can take many forms. Some people keep a gratitude journal, writing down 3 to 10 things each day that they are thankful for. Others practice gratitude through meditation, sitting quietly and focusing their hearts on appreciation. Some express gratitude by speaking it aloud, telling people in their lives how much they matter. Others practice gratitude by serving, by giving back, by sharing their abundance. The form does not matter as much as the consistency. Gratitude must be practiced daily, like exercise, like brushing your teeth. The more you practice, the stronger it becomes. At first, it may feel awkward, but over time, it becomes second nature, a lens through which you see everything. Gratitude also shifts how you view time. When you are ungrateful, you are either stuck in the past, dwelling on what went wrong, or worried about the future, fearing what might happen. But gratitude roots you in the present moment. It makes you aware of what is beautiful now. You realize that this breath, this heartbeat, this conversation, this chance to live today is a gift. Gratitude teaches you that life is not a race towards some future happiness, but a series of moments, each one worthy of appreciation. And when you live fully in the present with gratitude, the past loses its power to haunt you, and the future loses its power to intimidate you. Even science supports what spiritual traditions have taught for centuries: gratitude attracts abundance. Positive psychology research shows that people who practice gratitude regularly are happier, more optimistic, more successful, and even physically healthier. Gratitude is not just a nice idea, it is a proven strategy for a better life. The law of attraction also emphasizes that energy flows where attention goes. If you constantly focus on lack, you attract more lack. If you focus on abundance, you attract more abundance. Gratitude aligns you with abundance because it signals to the universe, I see what you have already given me, and I am ready for more. It creates a cycle of receiving and appreciating, a cycle that expands endlessly. Consider the way gratitude shifts even the smallest interactions. Imagine two people entering the same workplace. The first walks in complaining about the traffic, the weather, the tasks ahead. Their energy is heavy and people avoid them. The second walks in saying, I am grateful for another day, grateful for the opportunity to contribute, grateful for the people I work with. Their energy is light, and people are drawn to them. Over time, the first person finds fewer opportunities, fewer connections, fewer joys, while the second person attracts promotions, friendships, and growth. The only difference is not skill or intelligence, but attitude. Gratitude is magnetic. It makes people want to work with you, want to help you, want to share opportunities with you. Gratitude is not just personal, it is professional power. Gratitude is also deeply connected to humility. When you are grateful, you acknowledge that you are not the sole creator of your blessings, that life itself, people around you, unseen forces have contributed. This humility keeps you grounded. It reminds you not to take things for granted. It reminds you that every gift, no matter how small, deserves recognition. Humility opens the heart, and gratitude keeps it open. Together, they create a spirit that is receptive to more, because life tends to give more to those who appreciate what they already have, even in moments of deep suffering. Gratitude has the power to heal. Survivors of trauma, illness, and loss often speak of how gratitude for small mercies kept them alive. Gratitude for a supportive friend, for a kind word, for a moment of peace. It is these tiny sparks of appreciation that light the way through darkness. Gratitude does not eliminate grief, but it balances it with hope. It reminds you that even in pain, beauty exists. Even in loss, love remains. Even in endings, beginnings hide. Gratitude is the bridge between despair and resilience. Visualize success as if it is already real. The human mind does not always distinguish between imagination and reality. And this is one of the most powerful truths you can use to transform your life. Every great achievement in history first existed in someone's imagination before it existed in the world. Every invention, every building, every work of art, every breakthrough began as a vision in the mind of a person who dared to see it before others could. Visualization is not wishful thinking. It is mental rehearsal. It is a deliberate act of programming your subconscious mind to expect success, to prepare for success, and to move towards success as though it were inevitable. When you visualize with clarity, intensity, and repetition, you are building a blueprint in your mind, and your actions naturally follow the blueprint. Most people go through life rehearsing failure instead of success. They imagine all the ways things can go wrong. They picture themselves being rejected. They play scenes of embarrassment or defeat over and over. They call it being realistic, but what they are doing is mentally practicing failure. And because the mind accepts what you repeatedly feed it, those negative images become the filter through which you act. If you constantly visualize yourself failing, you become hesitant, fearful, unsure. But if you visualize yourself winning, if you see yourself delivering the speech with confidence, landing the job with charisma, completing the project with excellence, your body begins to align with that expectation. Your posture, your tone of voice, your energy, your decisions all shift in the direction of success. Athletes have understood this power for decades. Olympic champions use visualization as seriously as they use physical training. They close their eyes and imagine every movement of their performance in perfect detail, feeling the muscles contract, hearing the crowd, experiencing the finish line. Studies show that mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as actual practice. In one famous experiment, basketball players who only visualized free throws improved almost as much as those who physically practiced. This proves that the brain does not wait for physical reality to shape itself. It begins shaping itself the moment you imagine it vividly. If visualization can improve athletic performance at the highest level, imagine what it can do for your career, your relationships, your goals, your entire life. Visualization works best when it engages all the senses. Do not just see your success, feel it. Hear the applause, hear the conversation, hear the environment around you. Smell the air, taste the victory, feel the emotions as if they are happening now. The richer your visualization, the deeper the impression on your subconscious mind. The subconscious does not operate in words, but in images and feelings. When you feed it strong images and emotions, it begins to believe that this is your reality. And once it believes, it starts guiding your actions, your attention, your focus toward making it true. You will find yourself noticing opportunities you once overlooked, taking risks you once avoided, persisting in ways you once abandoned, because deep inside you, your mind is convinced this is who you are and where you are going. Visualization is not a replacement for action. It is the foundation of action. When you visualize consistently, you prime yourself to act with confidence. You are no longer stepping into the unknown. You are stepping into something your mind has already rehearsed hundreds of times. That is why public speakers who visualize themselves speaking with passion are able to walk on stage with calmness. That is why entrepreneurs who visualize their businesses thriving are able to take bold steps when others hesitate. That is why leaders who visualize unity are able to inspire their teams even in chaos. Visualization does not guarantee that the path will be easy, but it guarantees that you will walk it with conviction. One of the biggest obstacles people face is self-doubt. They cannot see themselves succeeding, so they sabotage themselves before they begin. Visualization destroys self-doubt by giving your mind an alternative picture, one where you are capable, worthy, and powerful. The more you see yourself succeeding, the more natural it feels and the less foreign it becomes. At first, your inner critic may resist, saying, "This isn't real, you're just imagining." But with repetition, your inner critic grows quiet and your inner believer grows strong. Eventually, success no longer feels like a fantasy. It feels like your destiny. Consider the story of Jim Carrey, the actor and comedian. Before he was famous, he wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered and dated it for several years in the future. He carried that check in his wallet and visualized himself receiving that amount for his work. Years later, he received a movie contract that paid him exactly $10 million. Was it magic? No, it was the power of visualization combined with relentless effort. The check kept his vision alive, and that vision guided his actions until reality caught up. Stories like this are not rare. They are proof that visualization is a bridge between imagination and manifestation. Visualization also influences the way others perceive you. When you carry yourself as though success is already yours, people respond differently. They see your confidence, they sense your certainty, they feel your conviction. Humans are drawn to those who radiate belief. If you walk into an interview visualizing rejection, you will project nervousness, and the interviewer will feel it. If you walk in visualizing success, you will project confidence, and the interviewer will feel that too. Energy is contagious, and visualization shapes the energy you give off. When you consistently visualize success, you become a magnet for opportunities because people trust those who clearly believe in themselves. The key is to visualize not just the outcome, but the process. Do not only see yourself holding the trophy, see yourself training, sweating, persevering, working. Do not only see yourself wealthy, see yourself making smart financial decisions, serving others, creating value. Do not only see yourself in the relationship you desire, see yourself being kind, communicative, and loving. When you visualize the process, you prepare yourself mentally for the journey, not just the destination. The mind then cooperates not only with the dream, but with the work required to achieve it. Visualization of success is powerful because it builds resilience. When obstacles come, they do not feel like surprises. They feel like steps you already rehearsed. Even in moments of fear, visualization is a weapon. If you are nervous about speaking in public, close your eyes and imagine the room, the audience, the words flowing smoothly, the applause at the end. Repeat it so often that when you finally stand there, it feels familiar. If you are afraid of failing an exam, visualize yourself sitting calmly, recalling answers with clarity, writing with confidence. If you fear starting a new business, visualize yourself shaking hands with clients, solving problems, seeing growth month by month. Visualization replaces fear with familiarity, and the familiar always feels safer than the unknown. What was once intimidating becomes approachable. Because your mind has already been there, visualization can also be tied to gratitude. When you visualize your success, feel grateful for it as though it already exists. Gratitude amplifies the visualization because it tells your subconscious, this is real and I appreciate it. Gratitude makes the vision feel present. And when the mind feels something is present, it works tirelessly to align reality with it. This is why many people who practice both visualization and gratitude together see results more quickly.